Hey, sports fans, Larry Eater, Run Blog Run. This is Athletics Chat number 58. Stuart Weir is in Oxford, England, the intellectual capital of the world, in his lovely library. I am outside of the Magpie Cafe in Eugene, Oregon. Sure to be one of your favorite spots. If you come to Eugene next year, it's right next to the Gordon Hotel, and there's some nice little shops out here, and the Wi-Fi works well. And they should have everything built by then, I hope, But it's a nice day here today, Stuart. It was about 43 Celsius yesterday, about 111 Fahrenheit, and they suspended the meet for 5 hours. And then they brought us back at 8:30 when it got down to a very cool about 37, So, it was pretty special. But you had the British trials too last weekend,
yes.
So I'm going to ask you to start with that, and then we'll go to the U.S. trials.
Let's start with the weather. On Friday evening, I was wearing a shirt, a sweater, a jacket, a coat, and a woolly hat. But by Saturday, the sun had come out and I was just in shirt sleeves. But I mean, the temperature on the Friday night, it was absolutely freezing. I mean, in the mix zone. And hey, we had a proper mix zone where you could talk to people, not through a screen. I just didn't like asking anyone to stay and talk to me because I thought they would catch frostbite.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what lovely city was this in?
Manchester.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a good event. Our trials are not black and white like yours. We have the first two automatically selected, and the third one at the discretion of the head coach and his associates. And I'm speaking to you now at 9 o'clock in the evening in England, and 14 hours from now, a lot of athletes who didn't finish in the top two will know if they're going to Tokyo or not. We're having an announcement tomorrow morning. And there are, if you take somebody like Cindy O'Feely, who came third, one expected her to win, and she came third. She will have a slightly nervous evening, but I think there's not really any chance of her not being selected. But for others, it's when you have a really experienced athlete coming fourth and a young up-and-coming athlete finishing third, that's the kind of situation which is a real decision for the selectors. Who do you go with? But let me give you some of the highlights. Holly Bradshaw, who must just be one of the nicest people in the sport, jumped 490 in the pole vault. I exchanged messages with Kitty Najot, who said, "Oh, I suppose you heard that Holly had done 490 and you had to do 495 just to get the better of her." But we actually have talked about, can any of the current women reach 5 meters? And we could actually say we perhaps have 3 at the moment who are very close.
Wow. No, I think you're right. Over here we had little surprises in the women's pole vaults. You had Katie winning with that 495, and she did 3 shots at 507, and one looked like, there was a chance. Sandy Morris did not have a good day. She ended up finishing third. So it was just a little strange in the women's pole vault, but at least those top 3, and Sam Kendricks was second, tied for second in the men's pole vault. So at least, he and two good athletes. but now with the experience of him, athletes will be competing. So.
Mm-hmm. Probably the two standout races in the British trials were the two 800s. And the men's 800 was won by Elliot Giles from Oliver Dustin, who set a world lead earlier this year, and Daniel Rowden. And Daniel Rowden was third, and he was a full 300ths of a second from first.
Wow.
The
wow.
first three separated by 300ths of a second. Giles, you'll remember, had a really good indoors, but hasn't quite done it since. So it was good to see him there. And, people are saying, hey, Donovan Brazier's not going to be there. It's more open than we thought it was going to be. So I think that's really quite interesting. The women's, now, sadly, talking about the men, sadly, Max Bergen had to withdraw, and it's a shame for two reasons that he wasn't there, because he often likes to front run, and it would have been really quite fascinating to have a front runner up against people who are more cagey and waiting to pounce. Now, I exchanged emails tonight, or messages rather, with Natoya Gould, who won the Jamaican 800 in 1:57, and of course you had Athing Mu and Raven Rogers 1:56 and 1:57. And what I said to Natoya was, you would probably have lapped some of the ones in our race, because nobody wanted to lead it. And so they went round in 62 seconds. Gemma Ricci, who did lead, said, I hadn't planned to lead, but sometimes these things happen. And Gemma led the slow race until about 200 to go, when Laura Muir made a break, but not a decisive break. Laura led until about 100 to go, 50 to go, and then Gemma Ricci passed her. And while the two training partners thought they were battling it out, Keely Hodkinson overtook both of them, timing her run to perfection. And so she gets the automatic place, Gemma gets the automatic place, and I would be amazed if Laura Muir doesn't get the third place. But, what people are just the questions that people are whispering at the moment was, we thought that Gemma Ricci had a really good chance of a medal in Tokyo.
Yeah.
But suddenly, you look at the times that other people are running, and of course, it may be a slow race in the final in Tokyo, but if Athing Mu, Gould, and Raven Rogers decide to go out and run a 1:56 something, Gemma Ricci, I think, go on.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Watching Athing run yesterday was really interesting. Chanel Price took it out in 57.4, and then Athing went by about 500. She was in control at 600. Aji didn't go after her. Raven didn't go after her. And it wasn't until really Athing had moved away. Kate Grace was battling, but then also starting to lose energy. And then Raven pulled that great move like she did in Doha. And then Aji did something different. Aji didn't lead. So maybe, Gemma's got to, they've got to try some other tactics, because I think that by the time the Olympics comes around, Athing is going to drop. I think it's going to take about 1:54, 5 or 6 to win, and I think Athing can do it. But what she wants to do is she wants to be on that 4x4. She wants that so bad, Good.
I mean, there were 8 runners in your 800 under two minutes. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've known Chanel Price since she won the World Indoors in Sopot in, what's that, 2014?
14.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, I just felt for her. She's had so many injuries. She's struggled to get into races, done a bit of pacemaking. So if you told her that she was going to go to the US trials and run a PR, she would probably have bitten your hand off. And my goodness me, she
Yeah.
runs a PR and she comes in fifth.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I mean,
Well,
any other country, she would be in the team.
yeah, with 8 women under 159.5, you know, that was
Yeah.
just it's
Yeah.
it's really unheard of.
Yeah.
I think that Offing's going to capture a lot of interest on the guys 800 in the U.S. Clayton Murphy, who was the bronze medalist from 16. Clayton had gotten married to Ariana Washington. He had moved back to the Akron, Ohio area. He picked up with his college coach, and I think he's looked very, very good, you know. And his win was decisive. I'll tell you, the young man second, Isaiah Jewett, if he figures out that there's another 200 to the 800, he could pull a Rudisha. He's that talented. Bryce Hoppel, Bryce did what he needed to do, make the team. But Donovan, we understand Donovan was sorting out an injury, and we didn't know much about it. We thought he would maybe be running the 1500, but he obviously did not. And he's not going to be in. No. He's not going to be the world champs this year.
Yeah. Now, I spoke to Jake Whiteman this week, and he said that the reason that he had gone to the European teams was he wanted to practice racing the 1500.
Okay.
Because he says, you know, we run all these diamond leagues with pacemakers, but you rarely get a chance to race. I mean, he actually he made a comment that he had not gone to college in America, and he thought that the one thing that you really get from running in America is week in, week out, you race, as opposed to doing the time trials. So anyway, the 1500 was really down to Josh Kerr and Jake, and it was magnificent. And again, Kerr led Jake over the last 50 meters, and you thought with every step Jake was going to overtake him, but he never quite caught him. And so they're the two automatic selections. Great race. Charlie Grice was back about fifth, and it looks yet again he'll miss out on selection for a major championship. But you know, I fancy Jake and possibly even Kerr to be in or close to the medals. Interestingly, Jake said, of course, it'll be a different race without Timothy Chariot, although personally I don't actually believe he's not going to be there. So that's an interesting one.
Yeah. No, that was.
Will they find a way to get Chariot in?
Yeah, I mean, and look, they lost Elijah Monogloff for the next 4 years. Timothy just had a bad day, you know.
Yeah.
And I think they'll try to find a way. I think the one that's going to be tough is dealing with the vagaries of what's. There's going to be surprises in Tokyo no matter what we do. There were surprises at our trials and surprises at your trials. With Zarnell Hughes in the 100, he was DQ'd, and you think he's going to be selected. Is that correct?
I think he will.
Okay.
Find out tomorrow.
Yeah. Some of our races were really interesting this week. Well, actually, many. where, the world record with our friend Ryan Krauser, the shot put, and at 76 feet 8 inches, what was it, 23:37. The That was a huge, huge performance, and both hundreds, men and women's, were quite satisfying with Trayvon Bromell, and Sha'Carri was magnificent. I thought Sha'Carri would do the 200 as well, but quite frankly, we didn't even need that because we've got Gabby Thomas, Jen Prandini, and Aniva Battle, and Allison Felix was fifth place. It's just just
blew
my mind.
When she was in Gateshead, Sha'Carri said that she was going to double up, but obviously a change of plan. Now, yes, as you mentioned, Zarnell false started and was DQ'd, which was a bit stupid, really, because I don't think there was anyone in the race who would have beaten him. The only possible one was CJ Uja. So he really didn't need to go on the bee of bang, as Linford Christie used to call it. He didn't need to. He didn't need that extra few hundredths of a second, but he did. And of course, our 100 meters also ended in a bit of farce, because Dean Asher-Smith stopped the clock at 10:71, was photographed in front of it, and then it adjusted to 10:97.
What happened there? Just a malfunction with the
malfunction with the clock. Yeah.
Because in your. But
I just could say that Dina said afterwards it didn't feel like a super fast time to her. So I think that there's no question that it wasn't. But one of the disadvantages of our selection process is that Laura Muir decided not to run the 1500 and Dina decided not to run the 200 because a conversation has gone on and that they're going to be selected. And I mean, as the system stands, that's perfectly reasonable. How would you not select Dina for the 200 when she's the world champion? How would you not select Laura Muir? But because that can slightly throw things, because there was one year that Laura ran the 800, which she wasn't intending to run at the championship, but then she takes the first place. And so therefore there's only one automatic place left. So, but anyway, someone else that you and I both have a lot of admiration for had a good weekend. That was Jodie Williams, who won the 400 and the 200.
Wow. Now, what was her time in the 400? What was her final? Because I know she ran that 51.95 in the heats. What did she end up?
51 something. I don't have the figure in my head.
And then her little sister ran quite well too, correct?
Yeah, she did. Her sister Hannah ran 2 PRs in the weekends. You know, she had a PR in the prelim and a PR in the final. And I think she's got a great chance of being selected for the relay. And actually, Jodie said afterwards, you know, my dream would be sharing a room at the Olympics with my little sister.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
It's an interesting situation because Jodie now, if she chooses to, can run the 200 and the 400 in the Olympics. But arguably, her best chance of an Olympic medal is in the relay. And I wonder if conversations will be going on with her to say, look, if you were to reach the final of both, you would have had 6 races in your legs before you come to your best medal chance. And so I wonder if there will be pressure on her to choose between them. And I mean, even if she doesn't reach the final, she'll still have 4 races, because I'd be pretty sure she'd reach the semi-finals of both.
Well, it's like over here, we've got Woody Kincaid and Grant Fisher, who have both qualified for the 5 and 10. You wonder if they're going to do those, which used to be always everybody did. And on the women, and on the women's side, you've got Carissa Schweitzer, and also let's see who else. Carissa, Rachel Schneider was close. Yeah, it was Carissa, and there's the chance that and Elise. Yeah, so I think there's a chance that when I interviewed Chris yesterday, the way I took it was that she was saying, while she'd like to get some more experience at the 10, she's not ready to run it yet in the Olympics. She'd rather stick with a 5. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where she goes, And this whole doubling thing is an issue.
It is. Well, interestingly, Jake said that he would like to double 800, 1500 sometime. But of course, he pointed out that the first problem you've got is that our trials are a 3-day event.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to do a minimum of 4 races to get selected.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, as with Lauren, you are a standout athlete and can assume that you're going to get, the discretionary place. But he said next year, of course, there's the Commonwealth, the European, and the Worlds, and that he will definitely do all 3 events, but will not do the 15 on all of them.
Wow.
So there's an opportunity for him to play around with events. But well, it's something I was just thinking.
Here was a question I had for you about the men's 1500s in the UK. Give me your guys' team. You think will be Josh Kerr, Jake Whitman?
Yeah, yes, those 2. And I'm really not quite sure who will get the 3rd place, because Gurley, who made the world final, is injured, and there are probably 2 or 3 who would have a chance of getting it. So I think that is an interesting one. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
The selection thing is very. I think they've done some pretty sly moves sometimes. There's been some that we've questioned,
Yeah. But I mean, it's because to some extent, I mean, I think it's a really fascinating one in the 800, because how can you not take Daniel Rowden, who was 400ths of a second from winning the race? But equally, you've got Jamie Webb, who has been to championships before and won medals. So do you want to take the really fast rookie, or do you want to take the more experienced? You see, I think you can make an argument for both. That'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, what I was going to say there is there's a sort of a kind of a joke going around in Britain at the moment after Sidney McLaughlin's performance, that there's a lot of very good athletes who think running 52 without hurdles is quite a good time.
Yes. Yeah, that was an amazing race. And it lived up to all expectations. They came off by 300 meters right past the 7th hurdle, and it was Delilah right there, Sydney to her right, to her left, and then on the other side, it was the young NCAA champion, and I thought Shamir would make the team, and Shamir dropped back behind Anna. But when Sydney went by at that 9th hurdle, it wasn't like she was sprinting by. It was like Raging Bull. And the 5190 from Sydney looked so, she wasn't straining, she was working hard. Second place with Delilah Muhammad in 52.4. We had heard Delilah might have some muscle issues, but she put herself all into it. And it was a tough race.
Yeah, if you're Delilah Muhammad and you've broken the world record not once but twice, and sometimes you break a world record and it stays broken for years and years, but yet she breaks it twice and it's gone already.
Yeah, that's got to be just amazing to me. And and I thought Delilah's race would. I saw the world record back in 1995 in Gothenburg, where the two Americans were under the record. It was Kim Batten and I'm just forgetting right now who number two was. Taja. Yeah, I'll look it up. Tanja Buford Bailey. Yeah. And that was amazing back then. And we've had some really good athletes. Then you had, your superstar, Sally Gunnell. The 400 hurdles is such a brutal race. The thing that I think is important about Sydney this year is that she got her PB in the 100 and she got her PB in the 100 hurdles this year and the 60 hurdles. And that's all Bobby Kersey. I mean, Kersey, she changed coaches from Joanna Hayes, and Joanna was working with Rye Benjamin because Rye bent over backwards to thank her after his 46.84 yesterday or the day before. And so you've got the intermediate hurdles is one of I think, the toughest events in the entire thing. And it's going to be exciting. I mean, I think that we could see another world record in the hurdles. I'm pretty confident we'll see one in the men's, and I think we'll see one in the women's too. But it's really funny because a couple of years ago, when all the footwear companies were all over Sydney McLaughlin, and she was being represented by Wesley Felix, Allison's brother, and they had closed bids apparently on the from the various brands, and this hadn't happened in a long time. And two of the brands, I mean, everybody was in there. Two of the brands pulled out, and when New Balance, rumored to have spent over 1.5 million a year, people, would call me and say, well, why would they do that? Well, this is why they would do that. Sydney McLaughlin is a rock star. She's a social media phenom. She is one of the most talented athletes we've ever seen. And we're going to have a 4x4 probably with Sydney, where we could have Athing Mu, Allison Felix, and you name it. We've got 3 or 4 other athletes. And unless they do that magical thing where they drop the baton, which happens, but hopefully not in the 4x4, it could be terribly exciting.
Isn't there a US TF rule that you must have an Alison Felix in your relay team?
Well, one would think so, and I'll tell you, Allison said when I was doing print magazines, Allison was on the cover of Cal Track 4 times. She was on the cover of Athletes Only twice, and American Track and Field 1 time. No other athlete, not even Hailey, was on the covers. And why? Because she spoke to a lot of the young women. She spoke to my readers. The several times when I got to visit with her, I remember one night coming into Doha, and it had to be 1 o'clock in the morning, and she had every reason to just shut it down. I spent some time on a bus with her and Wesley, and had just a really, treasured conversation. It wasn't about anything special. It was just that Allison showed class, and she showed class this weekend. There was another, and I'm going to talk to you about that too. First of all, her making the 400. I encourage people to go back to the semifinal and watch the last 50 meters, because Allison made this move where she was testing Kendall Ellis. And when Allison moved, Kendall matched it. And Allison knew that Kendall was a little afraid of her, and there was a weakness there. And in the final, Kanera Hayes, we had interviewed her a few weeks ago, and you know, Kanera is delightful, and we had her son on the interview for about 10 minutes, and he was a blast. But it was important for me to show young moms with their athletes, because I really think it's important. And you know, we've seen it with your athlete, Alita Doyle, who's, you know, just retired and has I think, 2 kids. And there's several athletes out there that several athletes that had children and come back. And so Kanera wins, but the move in that 400 was Allison came in from 4th and just was running everybody down. Then she comes back and runs 22:11 in a 200 and is in 5th place because Gabby Thomas and Jen Prandini decide to rewrite the top 10 list. I mean, Gabby Thomas ran 21:61, and she was fierce in that last 50. I love seeing her and Prandini going at it. And Aniva battle. Aniva had no clue she even made the team. Allison knew exactly where she was. And in that 200, she went over and she congratulated all the women on the team and then got her way out of it. She's a classy athlete. And does she want to run the 4x4 again? Yeah. You know, and I hope if coaches are smart enough to know. John Chaplin, the coach up at Washington State, told me the only thing an Olympic coach is remembered for is if their teams drop the baton, and that is true. And you know, our coaches this year, they win those relays. They're the most brilliant coaches in the world. You know, and that's the challenge. But Allison was a big story. The other one that showed class was the race that happened last night, and that was our friend Matthew Centrowitz. Last night, after a 5-hour delay, we had the women's 800. I think we won that. We had a world record in the 400 hurdles. We had Javon Harrison, who won the long jump at 8:47. And he'd already won the high jump, and it's the first time since 1912 that an American will go on the high jump and the long jump. And I think he will medal in both. I think he may be able to win both. This kid is super, super talented. And then you came to the final 2 races of the evening, the men's 1500, which I think as many people were there to watch that as to watch the 200. The men's 1500, Matthew Centrowitz is the street fighter. And when he won in 2016, he kept the pace slow and then ran a 50.6 in that last lap. Took gold, first time in Americans since 1908. But what most people don't think about in that race is the 3rd placer in that race, and that was Nick Willis. Nick Willis had the fastest finish of anybody. The Kiwi, that was his 2nd Olympic medal, and it was tremendous. But in the 1500 last night, you've got Matthew kind of controlling the pace. Eric Avila led for a while. Sam Prakel led for a while. But by the 1100, Matthew was on it. And at 1,200, at 1,300, at 1,400 meters, I still thought Matthew would win. What had happened at the water jumps at about 160 meters to go, though, was pretty significant. around that water jump, Cole Hawker, the young Oregon athlete, made this amazing move, and he flew around the turn. But what he did in that last 50, I haven't seen leg speed in that last 50 since we saw Bernardo Lagat in 2007 in the 5,000 and the 1,500. Cole flew up on Matthew. Matthew didn't even have time to react, and he got by him. And the crowd roared. And Cole was obviously excited about making his team, but also about beating the Olympic champion. Matthew showed class, again, similar to Allison Felix. He congratulated him. He took some time with him. But Matthew also knows that the Olympic trials aren't the big thing. He's got to defend in Tokyo. And then we had our 200, which Arian Knighton, the young sprinter who has broken a 200 record every time he ran in the heats. He finished in the final in 1984, breaking Usain Bolt's record, but he was third. Second place was Kenny Bendardnik, the guy everybody said Kenny's going to win everything, and Kenny set a PB in 1978. And guess who's in front of him? Noah Lyles in 1974. But Noah, in the semifinals, I encourage people to go back and watch. Arian got by Noah, but I'm pretty sure Noah let it happen, but it also riled Noah up. Noah's a competitor, and Noah likes the story to be about him, and it was about Arian. And it's going to be fascinating to see that 200 race in Tokyo. I mean, I think we had I love that you guys can have an Olympic trials in 3 days. I think we could have one in what I understand is NBC TV wants the Olympic trials on 2 consecutive weekends. And the only way USATF can do it financially is they have to have stuff in between, because they can't fly people home back and forth between, those 9 or 10 days. So it's a little frustrating and long. We had 2 days off during the time, and I posted a lot of stories and did a bunch of interviews, but it was interesting. It was also interesting is the only thing that BBC was interested from the U.S. trials was about Shelby Houlihan. They never even had me talk about Brian Krauser and the world record. I've sent a note off to him about doing a little roundup. And I have to say, I'm very frustrated with BBC for not covering your championships. And the way that a lot of people saw your championships is through the Backstreet Boys. They were doing some coverage of it. And I don't know what's going through Joe Coates' mind, because you have one of the finest, you have at least you're at least in the top 3 in the world, British athletics. And that she didn't understand the importance of putting you guys on TV totally befuddles me, It's frustrating.
Yeah. Just before we must be running out of time, but just before we finish, I would like to put together 2 things you've mentioned: mothers and 200 meters.
Okay.
There's a lady in Jamaica, I think she's Mrs. Fraser Price, I think the name is.
Yes, I've heard of that person, yes.
A lady who told me that she's still learning how to run the 200.
Wow.
So she's only able to do it in 21:79. I did send her a message saying, well, perhaps by Paris you'll have learned how to do it.
Bravo, Stuart. Bravo.
No,
That's a great
and
send-off.
of course, she also did a 10:71 in the 100.
Wow.
That time the clock stopped and stayed stopped.
And then I heard that our friend Omar McLeod slipped, and he's not even going to be on the team now.
Well, unless they can find a way of getting him. I think his time was 16 seconds.
Well, you know what we didn't talk about, dear friend, was Mo in that 10,000 trials number
Yeah.
2. Talk to me about that, my friend. What did you think?
Well, you know, he's 38. Age
Yeah.
catches up with us. And,
Yeah.
you know, for 6 years, he was the best in the world. He won all the major finals. But then he went off and ran on the roads. He didn't find that as easy as he thought he would do. And, you know, he came back and he literally had not run Trek 10K for 4 years. And
Yeah.
he just didn't have the legs to get the time. I mean,
Yeah.
the pacemakers were set up, but they both had dropped out by I think about 6K. So for the last 3,500, he was on his own, just running lap after lap after lap, and he just didn't have it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's quite a tall order to run a time if you have to
Yeah.
run that number of laps completely on your own.
Yeah. I do too.
But, you know, it was just a bridge too far. You know, I think that if Mo had retired in 2017, everyone would have said, you know, one of the greatest distance runners ever. But because he dabbled in the marathons and really, apart from winning, was it Chicago once, didn't really achieve very much, then tried to come back. That didn't work. In a way, he damages the reputation, perhaps, but there we are. Age catches up with us.
Yeah. At this time, my friend Stuart, time has caught up with us. We're at our limit today, and I thank you on Athletics Chat number 58. Next week, we're going to have 59. And you are going to be going to Tokyo, and we will be asking you for some thoughtful coverage. I will be covering things remotely. We will have photographers over there and a few other writers as well. But I'm looking forward to the Olympics. I think it'll be exciting. It's just sad that some of the quarantine things, there was a Ugandan coach we both knew about who just tested positive, and the group's now quarantined for 14 days. And luckily they're over there early, you know. But stay safe. Look forward to your articles this week. We've got Nicola, is it Nicola McDermott, the Aussie high jumper? We've got 3 pieces. And I believe I still have 1 piece by Scott Simpson I need to get up.
No, I think you've done all of Scott. Done all of Scott.
We like Scott's stuff, and did I think I don't know? Did we say congratulations to Katie Nashiat for 495 clearance? I thought she did splendid. So we've had a good couple times, my friends, and I will check in with you next week. Stay safe.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, sports fans, this is the epilogue of Athletics Chat number 58. Today, Stuart and I talked about the British Olympic trials, the Mueller British Olympic trials, and the U.S. Olympic trials, which were sponsored by Toyota. The British trials went over 3 days. The U.S. went over 9 days. What's that about? Well, the British trials were not covered on BBC TV. BBC took the churlish view that, well, you know, we're not going to pay the production fee and we want British Athletics to pay 50 grand. I thought for some reason BBC was in the job of helping educate and covering all things that are great in Great Britain, and one of them is athletics, but I guess I was wrong. Joe Coates on the other side, British Athletics, couldn't find a compromise and say, okay, guys, we'll pay this or we'll help you with this, but let's do the championships, dear God. So for the first time in a century, you know, it goes back to the 1990s, the British athletics Olympic trials were not shown on British TV. Our friends, the Backstreet Boys, excuse me, covered a streaming version of a lot of the trials and did some fun stuff with it. But terrestrial TV did not, and I think that's a disappointment. On the other side, the U.S. had terrestrial TV on NBC. They had streaming on NBC Network and the Peacock, and there were some fantastic hours. We also had a great team, starting with the Australian announcer, Dealey, I believe. I heard mixed reviews from him on him. Otto Boldman, good stuff. Paul Swangard, good. Kara Goucher, Sonia Richards-Ross, and Trey Hardy. I think the Mr. Diffie, I think he kind of grew into it. I mean, obviously he's got the experience, but track and field's a little different than the Indy 500. The coverage, from what we're understanding, was pretty good. The couple pieces that I watched on TV late at night were quite good. They covered a lot of the women's 10,000, so we can see Emily Sisson and her amazing race on Saturday. I'm looking forward to seeing the last program with day 10, which was pretty tremendous as well. But so what Stuart and I did is we compared and contrasted the U.S. Olympic trials and the British Olympic trials. Check out Athletics Chat number 58. I think it'll be worth your while. Thank you again. I'm in Eugene, Oregon, sitting outside of the Magpie Coffee Shop. It should be one of the places you frequent for caffeine next year when you come here for the trials. This is a little alleyway by the Gordon Hotel across from the old Hilton. Make sure you get your hotels now because prices are out of control. I was staying at the True Hilton in May for a couple meets for $106, and they went over $430. So I ended up staying at a Motel 6 in Springfield. It wasn't the worst hotel I've ever been in, but it was close. The last couple of days when it hit about 108, air conditioning didn't work. Not a good thing. So find a good place for yourself. Find a good Airbnb. Get it done now because stuff's going to go really quick. Okay? Larry Eater with your thoughtful hint and the end of epilogue for Athletics Chat number 58. Stay safe.